The first time I tried recording this video, I learned that a number of LLMs are incapable of actually running the prompts. So I rewrote them so that more LLMs understand the instructions and also made some improvements to it, which means that there will be a new version of both parts 1 and 2 of the guide once this video is published. So one of the lessons learned from this is you should always be testing different models when you first start using a prompt. And when you find models that give you the output or the format you like, add them as a model to the prompt itself so that it's always available, it's always listed at the top. Getting started, we'll go to chat. PBN. The big change was many of these were moved into Brainstorm. So we want to go to, we finished with 115 and now we have 120 character builder. You can see here I've got Grok 3 Mini and Gemini 2.5 Flash. We'll try Grok 3 Mini. This prompt is going to generate some placeholder main characters. So it's created, giving us 3 options for a protagonist, 3 options for an antagonist, 3 options for opponent 3, third corner of the 4-corner opposition, and then contagonist, which is opponent 4 of the 4-corner opposition. Come up with some internal struggles and external forces to have had shadow opposition. Come up with some settings and locations for the story. At this point in the brainstorming process, we're more looking at their wants, their needs, their core beliefs, their basic profile for, what would make a good protagonist or antagonist for the story, and not so much their name, their gender, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some of these and update the codex. Using the output of the main character prompt, I've filled in some details for the main characters and some additional locations or settings. So the next step, started a new chat session, is, and we'll do Gemini 2.5 Flash for this one, character profile generator. And this one requires a little bit more work. If we type usage, it mentions open the tweak and generate menu, use the drop down menus and text boxes. Now you can see that there's quite a few open text boxes. So importance level is, are they a main character, secondary, incidental, or companion? And each of those has descriptions. In this case, we want to do Raphael, who is a main character. And if we wanted to create a character from scratch, we could leave a name out. Do Raphael Santos. Race or species, in this case he's a human. Character details are anything you want to use to guide the generation or the creation of the profile for a character. So something I want to do is kind of guide, later on we'll create a item that is unique to him or signifies him in some way. Save that. Tell begin. Type proceed. So you can see it's generating quite a lot of information because this is using the template for main character, which has a lot of questions and a lot of details that it can generate. I'm just going to copy all of this, go over to Dr. Rafael Santos, copy and paste that, probably the image stuff. That in research. This is something I would come back and then clean it up so that only the stuff that the AI really needs is in it, and then anything else I move into notes. But what I want to do now is start a new chat session. Name is 120. And this time we'll use Claude 3.5 Haiku. Tweak and generate. And let's try creating an incidental character. It will be human. And this might be the person that they talk to during their trip through space. Last one. Let's see what happens if we type proceed. You can see that this was a much shorter character profile. Character. We want them to be. Where is incidental? Yep, there it is. Incidental character. Name to be determined. Excellent. We have a prompt for that. So what we'll do is, we have all the information. I'll go ahead and delete this thread rather than save it. New chat session. Let's try Grok 3 Mini. Character name generator. And this one, I type usage. First thing it says is you should try fantasy name generators or behind the name. And there's a good reason for that. Got it. If you've never seen this website, if you've never used this website, you should bookmark it. Any kind of name for a person, a creature, yeah, we got genies, ghouls, mad scientists, puppets, werewolves. Real names from people all over the world and periods of time. You can see, yeah, even broken down by continents. Historic. Place and location names. Any type of building, shop, realm, quasar, stars. Other names, I saw one here earlier. Fungus. You can create names for fungi. Drugs, plants and trees, newspapers, sports. Pop culture, this is interesting. So if you're looking names for characters, these mostly look like for either book series or video games like Monster Hunter, StarCraft, Warhammer. All kinds of descriptions of things, places, and diseases, realms, all kinds of weapon stuff. Other generators, armor creator, currencies, outfits, scrolls, tarot cards, swear words. So highly recommend using this site over anything else. But for our purposes, we're going to assume that even with all those options on those websites, we want to create our own name. So it has some rules for different genres: sci-fi, fantasy, cyberpunk, romance, and then general. I'm going to go with general. Make it female. So one of the things it does, it goes and chooses from a list of ancient, or what I consider exotic names. And in his case, it selected Norman and Sumerian. And you can edit this prompt to use whatever nationalities, ancient origins. Builder 1. So on peoples here, you can change this, add to it, subtract anything you want from this list. To help the AI, pick a random name, but also something that fits your story and your genre. And you can also go in here and change, where did I put, your conventions. So like romance. My understanding of romance is there's a lot of Victorian era stuff, but if it's a contemporary, if it's, or it could be, maybe it's a romance in feudal Japan. In that case, it would not be a Victorian era name, but whatever, you can come in, tweak this prompt, fit your needs for naming. We'll go back to chat. Willowthorn, that's good enough for me. Don't need that. Name. Now we have a name. But that's character name generator. So we will now move on to so now we go back to brainstorming. And first thing it's going to require us to do is choose a genre. So we want science fiction. Go with my new favorite Grok 3 Mini. And the first prompt is disasters and setbacks. And like all prompts, if we're not quite sure what it does, type usage. Generate multiple disasters and setbacks. Challenge the protagonist. Type again, save the output to a snippet. So it's telling us which codex entries it used, which are the story notes. It uses shadow opposition, specifically these internal and external threats. And then it creates disasters and setbacks using a list of kind of a generic plot outline. So we've got an inciting incident, setback 1, a disaster, setback 2, another disaster, which could be your pinch points and plot twists, yet another setback and another disaster, And this might be one where it's a good idea to try a different. Ooh, yeah, let's try RC Blitz. Do a retry. Kind of kit bash our disasters. We can see it's come up with a number of disasters and setbacks, much more leaner than what Grok provided, but we'll create a snippet for it as well. I'm going to do some kit bashing off screen, and then we'll go ahead and update. I'm going to kit bash both of these results together and come up with a single list of setbacks and disasters, and then copy them to Note 112, which is, sadly, neither one of the LLMs mentioned that that's where it's supposed to go. And some of that's, I need to make some changes to the usage in the prompt, so you won't experience this when this video goes live. Real quick, I do want to take the opportunity, if you're not aware of, and this was in the update in May, but you can pin this snippet, add this snippet to the screen. And I always like to try to put this to something that's blank. But now I've got both of these are side by side, and I can choose. So I've got to choose one from a setback 1. You know, or same thing with a disaster. Choose one of these disasters. By having them side by side, it makes it easier to kit bash. So now I'm going to go off camera and come up with a single list of disasters and challenges, and then we'll move on to the next prompt. I managed to kit bash both snippets with disasters and setbacks into a single file. This is a good example of why the anti-A crowd is wrong about how writing with AI is simple as typing in some commands and pressing a button. I've had to go in and make multiple tweaks to some of the things and then put them in a sequential order. Now that I've determined what disasters and setback would look good in the story, it's time to have the Drunken Critic weigh in. And we have to tell it it's science fiction again. And let's give it Grok again. Again, use the revised output to update Note 112 disaster and setback. And I'm still looking at the snippet. Here we go. But just a brief glance through shows it's got, there's some things that it liked, some things that it suggested could make it better, and some that it's just like, nope, try again. So it's provided some valuable input, and as always, I'll save it as a snippet. And our next prompt is one paragraph summary, so we will go ahead and delete the thread, start a new chat conversation. Gives me a chance. Throw some tokens to RC Blitz. And for those of you new to the PBN, we're returning to the snowflake method, and that now that we've got a fairly fleshed out plot, let's see what it looks like in one paragraph and see if we can tease out the theme of the story. And it's purely optional. And usually if you've got a pretty good idea of the story, you don't need to do this. But I find it helps. Once upon a time, two immortal rivals, reincarnations, Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan, crash land on Mars, faced with the challenges, and they went. That's actually pretty good. I like it. I might have to use that for the marketing prompts later. Start another chat session. Let's do it. Might not give Valkyrie a chance. 5-paragraph summary. Oh, that's actually, there's supposed to be. Should have told me to put it in 113. Copy. Yet one more thing to fix. I don't know what for the story. What's that all about? But this is why I don't use Valkyrie a lot, because it'll do stuff like this. Just those gobbledygook. But for our purposes, it'll work. Put it in 5-paragraph summary. Having created the 1-paragraph and 5-paragraph summaries, it's time for the final prompt in this final brainstorming set of prompts. And we will go with Grok 3 Mini. And that is combined nested stasis loops. Science fiction, so type usage. To begin, save the output, use the revised output to update or overwrite note 105, required 105, 112, and 114A, the 5-paragraph summary. Save the output, making revisions. Move the current plot and note 105 plot brainstorm to the notes tab. So we'll pin that. But before we do that, this is one of many prompts in the PBN system where you're combining two different sources. So in this case, it was note 105 and note 112. And it's frequently a toss-up on how well the AI will do actually combining those sources together and how much information it will discard or consolidate or summarize. Or so one thing I like to do is check the sizes of the sources. So in this case, note 105 has 689 words. And note 112 is 572. Well, when I add those up, it's around what's less than 1600, 1500, 1600. So an output of 1835 words is a good indication that it's used most of the information, if not all the information, in those two sources. It's probably done some consolidation and summarization, but it's not condensed it into, you know, another 5-paragraph summary. And if you don't get these results, try shifting to a different LLM. But in this case, it looks like Grok 3 Mini has done a good job, so we will do as the instructions state we will copy the details in Note 105 and paste them into the research field, just in case there's something that did get missed and we need to do a comparison. But then we will save as a snippet. And this is the Note 105 rewrite. And then I'll go off camera, clean this up, make any changes as necessary, and then copy the output and overwrite what's in Note 105 so then we can move on to the next set of prompts. Now we're going to move into the high-level world building prompts. First is a settings generator. Setting 1, Valles Marineris and surrounding areas. Sets a setting, suggested locations, improvise Mars survival camp. Just to be safe. So while most of the story does take place on Mars, it did a good job of creating settings and locations there, but sometimes you have to give it a little nudge to also think of other things. What we'll do is we will copy those to the snippet. Then I will go off screen, make some edits, create codex entries, and we'll move to the next prompt. I've created all the settings and locations that were generated in the previous prompt, so now it's time to move on to the next prompt, World Physical Description. Which will help flesh out the settings. So let's see. I'm going to have it make an attempt at the improvised Mars base camp. There we go. And this one is, we can see from this little icon here in relations that it has all these kind of subsites or rooms. So all this is going to get pulled in, and I believe if we go to tweak and generate, preview, so improvise Mars base camp, I guess not. So as it mentions here in the output, this prompt, instead of giving the AI just a single role, I've told it is a panel of experts composed of an anthropologist, an architect, a cartographer, a geologist, a historian, a biologist, and a dungeon master, and that each of them gets a say on describing the location or setting that you choose from your codex. Just for now, I'm going to copy all this into that codex entry, and I'll go back and clean it up, find the relevant stuff. But as you can see, this looks at a location from multiple angles so that you can get a full picture of what the setting is. And the next prompt is sensory details. So just to be certain, we'll start a new chat session. And let's try Mistral Medium. Sensor details, same thing. We get to choose from our location, codex entries, Martian Canyon Overlook. So this here generates the positive and negative sensory details for a location. Because the way, we view a location, or the way we view a place, is often reflective or reflected by our emotional state. So if we're happy, then of course it's full of rainbows and lollipops. And if we're not, then it's full of dark clouds and rain and so this is also another prompt that looks at the location from multiple perspectives to get the positive and negative sensory details. I'll copy that. And this also pairs nicely with a prompt that I recently added to the PBN. This is what was made by Angie of Bite Size Booksmith. Her describe text replacement prompt, where you would go in to write, highlight some text, and then it will enhance the description of that, whatever it is that you've highlighted. And I've created some presets for how someone with a criminal past might look at a location compared to someone who is fearful, someone who is feeling negative, someone's feeling positive. Yeah, so this is more after you've written something and you want to add sensory details. The next set of prompts, and the last in the brainstorm phase, are the ones creating the first plot outline. And the first prompt is choose a plot structure. The default in Note 115 is K.M. Weiland's 10 scenes, or as I like to think of it, the 18 events. I went through and looked at all the different plot structures and counted up the number of events in them. And this one kind of sits right in the center, so it could be good for short fiction or long fiction. And it's fairly well broken down into what percentage of the story each event should occur. It does not hurt to ask the AI what plot structure it thinks we should use for this particular story. This is going to be multi-POV, so non-linear. Point of view, I'm going to try doing a third-person omniscient. So the first thing it'll do is it lists all the different templates based on which length of story they're suitable for. But it's saying based on our genre and novel length, it's thinking Hero's Journey, Free Takes Pyramid, Save the Cat, or K.M. Weiland's 18 Scenes. So if I had chosen a different one, it says we would copy it out of whichever templates codex entry it was in, and then write over what is currently in Note 115. It says set the prose tense and point of view in Novel Crafter. And we can do that under Settings, Writing. So it's already set to past. I've got it US English, and I have third person omniscient. Although it's optional, kind of Rafael Santos is our primary POV character, and then Hemi Tane is the secondary. Let's go back to chat. And for the next one, we'll stick with Gemini 2.5 Flash, because I've broken the plot outline 1 prompt into 2. I couldn't I keep vacillating between should I do it as scene beats or should I do it as narrative summary. My thinking being, for short fiction of say 10,000 words or less, scene beats are fine. We don't need a very long plot outline because there's not much story to tell. But for long fiction, narrative summary, which is what we've been using so far, is probably good until we get to like plot outline 3 or 4. So first I'm going to do the scene beats plot outline. See what that looks like. And then it's telling us when we're done, we'll save it to note 116. And we know we've got all of those story notes already populated. So let's say begin. All right, so it's gave us 2270 words. And because this is combining multiple codex entries together, what I like to do is, we know note 105 is 1,535 words. And note 12, so yeah, it's a little over 2,000, about 2,100 words. So this is actually pretty good. Good indication that it actually used everything in both sources. 15 chapters. Well, it seems to have a lot of gaps. A lot of gaps, like it didn't know what to fill in there. And that just may mean we have more plot elements or more scenes than we actually have ideas so far to throw in there. We'll go ahead and save that as a snippet. Gemini 2.5 Flash. New chat session. And I know for the narrative one, 04 Mini High does a better job. So we will select it and go to the narrative summary plot outline. O4 Mini is a bit of a thinker, and I've edited out the minute and a half it took for it to come up with its first response. But it asks a very good question, and something I would recommend if you have plot idea is 10,000 plus words long, you might want to just do Act 1 and then do Act 2, Act 3, instead of trying to do them all at once. I have faith in O4 Mini. I'm going to, and it will probably go off and spend about 2 or 3 minutes thinking. Alright, so it took a good 5 minutes for O4 Mini High to come up with this plot outline, and it essentially failed. We have fewer words than we started with, and looking through it, it summarized quite a few of these. So the question is it the LLM or is it the prompt itself? Let's give Claude 4 Sonnet a try. This is actually what I expected O4 Mini to do, because in the past it's been very good about asking questions. It's done this in testing as well. Every other scene is from a different viewpoint. Yeah, it even asked, should it switch by scene or chapter? Let's see what it does with that. So I'm liking so far that we've got nice, juicy paragraphs. And we just got into Act 2A with over 1,100 words, so we're looking good. $2,500 so I'm going to declare Claude Sonnet 4 as the winner of this go round. I'm going to clean this up real quick, throw it into Note 116, and then we'll move on to the next prompt. Other than a couple of scenes where I had to change the POV character for consistency purposes or move them to a different chapter so it wasn't switching POVs within the same chapter, Claude Sonnet 4 did an excellent job of plotting this. Alright, so although I've saved it in Note 116, we do want to make sure that everything in Note 105 and 112 and any other sources were used. So using the same chat session, we will go to error check and let's see what Claude has to say about how good it was. See, there's a good one right there. That was a disaster or slash setback. Completely missing. Missing. So we do have some additional things that we need to go in and fix. Structural issues. I'm not going to do all these, but I can ask it to and since we're still in the same chat session, it still has in memory, so to speak, all the rules for how to create these scenes. And wow, it spitting out a lot more than it did with the other stuff. So what I'll do is edit these, integrate them into the plot outline, and then we'll move on to the Drunk Critic and find out what it has to say about our plot outline. With the added scenes, we are now up to almost 3,400 words. Starting with a fresh chat session. Give O4 Mini an opportunity to weigh in on the plot outline. So it looks like it's provided some fairly good suggestions on how we can improve the plot outline. So what I'll do is save those as a snippet and then make any changes necessary to the plot outline in Note 116. We're done with the brainstorming and we're ready to move on to the character and world building. However, I do want to mention, if you run into a situation like we did with the scene beat based plot outline where there's a lot of empty space in the plot, that would indicate that either maybe your story isn't as long as you, maybe it's not going to be a novel, maybe it'll be a novella, or it's going to be a shorter novel than you expected, or maybe you should try running the prompts again with a different plot outline, or jumping back to some earlier prompts to expand your stories, expand your disasters, so that you now have content to fill in those blank spaces in the plot outline. See you in the next video. If you have any questions, I highly recommend joining the Novel Crafter Discord. Thanks for watching and keep writing. Future readers are waiting for your stories.